guys, welcome to my new ranking of all 11 Christopher Nolan directed films. I love all of his films. He's made some of my favourite movies of all time, including the brand new Tenet that just came out. You can check out my review if you want to, and that will be including in this ranking. That's the reason I'm doing this ranking, so I can include that film. I love all of his movies, so it's going to be quite difficult to rank it, so we're going to start from 11, the worst film, to 1, his best. Coming in at number 11, I have Following. Following is easily Christopher Nolan's weakest film. I actually watched this a few days ago for the first time to prepare for Tenet coming out, and it's perfectly fine. I think the story and the plot is actually really well done. I like how it's all crafted with its twists and the turns. I like the noir black and white colour scheme of the entire thing. It's just very short. This film is just over an hour long, so you didn't really have enough time to really catch the mystery going on or anything that's happening. But I do think the plot is actually really well done. I think it's a well-written film and well-acted film. It's definitely a very, very small budget film. But it shows you how far he's come to making these big epic blockbusters from this little small film that's actually pretty clever. Coming in at number 10, I have Insomnia. Insomnia is probably his weakest big film, starring Al Pacino and Robin Williams. I love both these guys in it. Al Pacino, I love how he constantly gets more tired and tired throughout the entire film. He's working out this murder mystery case, and I really, really do love Insomnia. I really love this movie. I think it's a great murder mystery. I actually think this is a really underrated film. I love all the scenes in the mist and the shootouts and everything like that. I think they're really, really great stuff. But this movie is a remake of another story, so it's one of his less original films, but I still think Insomnia is pretty great. I just think of all of his other films, this movie doesn't have the... It doesn't leave me thinking about it. It's not one I want to go back and rewatch all the time. Coming in at number 9 is going to be Batman Begins. Batman Begins, I think, is probably going to be higher on other people's lists, but for me, it's at number 9. I still adore Batman Begins. I think it's a great new origin story for the character. I love how it's told in a non-linear way, going through his training and his past. I love Ra's al Ghul in the movie. I think he's a really good villain. I like the Scarecrow. I like especially Christian Bale in the film and how he's becoming Batman. I love all this in the movie. I think it's a really, really solid Batman movie, but again, it's not a movie that I like to go back to. It doesn't have much emotional stuff in there for me, and I think it's the weakest of his Dark Knight trilogy. Coming in at number 8, I'm going to have his big war film, Dunkirk. Dunkirk, I think, is a movie that lacks characterization and doesn't have a complex plot at all. It's just presenting the war. It's very loud, and it does it through this sounds and visuals. Visually, it's a very impressive movie, and it's brutally intense because of the visuals. This film, I think, is actually really well made, but it doesn't have any emotional resonance at all to it. And because there is no depth in the characters, this movie isn't supposed to have anything in the characters. It's just supposed to be a big epic presentation of the war, and I understand that's what Nolan is going for here, and for that I think it's actually really, really great filmmaking, and I don't actually have many issues with it besides that. But looking back, it's not a film that makes me think at all. Coming in at number 7 is going to be his brand new release, Tenet. This is a movie that I'm sure will probably go up on repeat viewings, but on first viewing I found that there was a big section of Tenet, especially in the last half, that I thought was some of the best stuff he's ever done. But the first half dragged for me a little bit, and it was sort of a conventional spy thriller for a while, until it did some brilliant, brilliant things. I think Tenet is an excellent film, and I think what Christopher Nolan does with the plot and the story here is very complex and very, very well done. There is limited characterization, but they're good eyes to follow the characters through and follow this story through. I think the plot is very well done, and it's left me thinking that I cannot wait to go back and rewatch this. This is something I cannot say about the films lower than it on the list, but this will probably go up after I see it again. Coming in at number 6 is going to be The Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises, I think, is another one of Nolan's most underrated films. I think this is a really great, emotional, tense, thrilling finale to his Dark Knight trilogy. I love the way they end this movie. It is so good. There's really good emotion there, especially with Alfred and Bruce Wayne and that emotional connection. The end of Batman, I think, is done super well. I love Tom Hardy as Bane. So thrilling, so engaging. A lot of this movie does have a few little story problems here and there, but I love the entire terrorism thing that Bane is doing and the state that Gotham City is in. It's a very different Batman movie than what you would expect to get from the comics. This is definitely Christopher Nolan telling his side of what he thinks Batman should be and showing Batman's struggles, and I think as a conclusion to the Dark Knight trilogy, I think it's brilliant. I think it's just a little weaker than The Dark Knight. Coming in at number 5 is going to be The Prestige. The Prestige is one of my favourite movies of all time. Saying it's at number 5 shows you how hard it is to put it this low, but I absolutely adore The Prestige. The plot of this movie is incredible. Christopher Nolan is a filmmaker that usually puts all of his effort into the characters or puts all of his effort into the plot. And here, he does both, because I love these two magicians, Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. Basically, they keep trying to one-up each other, and the added sci-fi aspect to it, the big twist at the end. This movie is so emotionally investing and so thrilling to watch. My head was exploding throughout the entire thing. It's one of his best paced films. It's one of his most immersive films. I love the time period that is captured in this movie. Yeah, I absolutely adore The Prestige. It's one of my favourite and definitely one of his most underrated films, and one of his best made and written films. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Interstellar. Interstellar does have a few problems, but this is the closest thing we're going to have to a modern day 2001: A Space Odyssey with the added emotional effect. This movie focuses a lot on love and regrets and leaving your children, and that entire thing there I felt was done so emotionally. Matthew McConaughey's performance is probably one of my favourite performances in a Nolan film, and I absolutely adore his performance in this movie because it really captures the emotion. This is one of his most visually pleasing movies. The visuals, the CG, the effects, they look amazing in Interstellar. And this is definitely one of his I think it is his longest film, and you can really feel it, because this movie feels so long and investing and immersive, and it's an experience. When it ended, I just didn't know what to think about it. I just wanted to look up into space and just think. And I had all these emotions. And it's not one I would like to go back and rewatch. I've only seen it one time, actually. But the emotions I felt while watching Interstellar and the thoughts that came after it make it one of Nolan's most impactful films. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Memento. Memento, Christopher Nolan's first, I would say, big film after Following, starring Guy Pearce, who is an excellent performance. This is probably Nolan's cleverest film. The way this movie is told, it's just a standard murder mystery-ish sort of thing with a guy who's losing his memory and he has to catch it back. But because it's told all completely backwards, he uses some of this storytelling in Tenet, but he does it very differently. In Memento, the entire film is playing from end to start, and it is brilliant. Nolan always likes to make his movies unconventional. He's not about following a story structure. He's about making the movie the way he wants to make it, and that's what's so brilliant about Memento. I absolutely adore this film. I think about it all the time. It's one of my ultimate favourite movies ever made. It doesn't have the rewatch value that my top 2 have to me, but I think Mento's a phenomenal character piece and mystery. Coming in at number 2 is going to be Inception. Inception and my number 1 I was really going back and forth to as to which one I liked more, but Inception to me is phenomenal. I love this movie. The score, Hans Zimmer does brilliant jobs with all the scores in his films, but most importantly Leonardo DiCaprio, who I think plays such a brilliant character in this movie, and he has a lot of emotion to him as well. This entire cast of characters I all love, but the entire plot surrounding Inception, the ambiguity, it has my favourite movie ending of all time. It has some of my favourite action sequences of all time. His new film Tenet also has some of my favourite stuff of all time in it as well, but Inception's story is so well crafted, how it arcs around the insane visuals of moving cities, and just absolutely insane. I love Inception. The entire last half is, again, super thrilling. I'm seeing a lot of comparisons with this and his most recent film Tenet, but Inception basically is a better movie. The entire dream sequences are so well done and filled with so much ambiguity and cleverness towards them. I watched this movie when I was very young for the first time, and surprisingly I understood it all for some reason, and it was one of the first films I ever saw that made me think differently about how films are made and structured. And Inception has a place in my heart because of that, and every time I rewatch it I feel the same intensity that I felt the first time. Coming in at number 1 though is going to be The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight I think is Nolan's most flawless film. This movie really is one of the best superhero movies of all time. Some consider it to be the best superhero movie of all time. The movie is so well crafted around its characters, especially Batman, the Joker, and Harvey Dent. These characters are so well done and performed and written. This movie is meticulously well done. It's in every single sequence. It has some of my favourite action sequences I've ever seen. This movie looks very dark. I love the grittiness of Gotham City. I love the entire mystery and crime thriller that this movie has around it. The Joker is absolutely brilliant in it. Just look at Heath Ledger's performance. It's fantastic, but it's everything around his performance, how his performance encapsulates what's happening. It's not even the standout of the film. The standout of this movie is just how well written and made it is. I love The Dark Knight, and it's just above Inception for me because it's just more rewatchable. I can rewatch this movie any day and be as thrilled. Inception, I like to take time with my rewatches. I don't like to rewatch it over and over again because I feel like it will lose its rewatchability factor. But The Dark Knight, I can rewatch over and over again, which is why it's my number one favorite Nolan film. Guys, let me know what your favorite Nolan films are down below. And of course, thanks for watching, and goodbye. And please go see Tenet. It was amazing.